When your wife says she's bored being alone, you never think she'll find a way to entertain herself with someone else. 8 years ago I married Linda. Back then I was working as a local driver, but a year after the wedding I switched to long-haul trucking. The money was much better and we were dreaming of our own house. Linda worked at the hotel reception desk in Pasadena, where we rented a 2-bedroom apartment. 3 years later our daughter Michelle was born, and it seemed like life was on track. I, Peter, spent 10 to 14 days a month on the road. Linda stayed home with Michelle, drove her to daycare, worked her shifts. We'd video chat, but over time the conversations got shorter. How are things? Fine. Is Michelle behaving well? Yes. I chalked it up to exhaustion. Last spring, Linda mentioned she'd reconnected with an old childhood friend, also named Peter ironically. He worked as a lifeguard on the beaches near Los Angeles. They ran into each other at a coffee shop and he gave her his number. Nothing serious, just nice to talk to someone who understands how hard it is here, she said. I didn't think much of it. Big mistake. A few months later I came home earlier than planned. The haul got cut short due to damaged cargo. Linda seemed surprised but not overly so. That evening while she was bathing Michelle, I accidentally picked up her phone instead of mine. They were the same model. A notification flashed on the screen from P. Can't wait for next time. Missed you. My heart stopped. I opened the conversation. What I saw turned my life upside down. Months of correspondence, photos, messages about meetings in Los Angeles when I was on the road. I've never felt so alive, she wrote to him. You're the only one who understands me. But the worst was yet to come. In one of the recent messages she wrote, I'm scared. The test is positive. Don't know how to tell him. I started counting. The last time we'd been together was almost 10 weeks ago. And in the messages she mentioned being 7 weeks pregnant. The math didn't add up. The next morning I drove to a local auto shop and bought a small GPS tracker. That evening while Linda slept, I attached it under her car seat. I needed evidence, not suspicions but facts. 3 days later I took time off, rented an unremarkable gray sedan and began surveillance. Linda said she was going to the doctor in Pasadena, but the tracker showed a different route, straight to Los Angeles. I followed her at a safe distance. She stopped at a small house in a quiet neighborhood. 5 minutes later, a man came out to meet her, tall, athletic build, dark hair. They embraced. He placed his hand on her belly. I photographed it. Then I waited until she drove off and approached the door. When he opened it, I introduced myself. Are you Peter? I asked. He nodded, looking at me with surprise. I'm Peter too. Linda's husband. The color drained from his face. What? Husband? She said you were getting divorced. That it was just a matter of time. Getting divorced? I laughed bitterly. News to me. Especially considering she's pregnant. With your child, by the way. He sat down on the steps, grabbing his head. I didn't know. God, I would never. She said you and her hadn't been living as a couple for a long time. That you're constantly on the road and neither of you needed it anymore. We talked for almost an hour. It turned out he really thought he was helping her get through a divorce. That they were just two lonely people who found each other. He didn't know about Michelle. Didn't know that Linda still wore her wedding ring when I was home. What are you going to do? He asked. I don't know, I answered honestly. But she'll hear the truth today. That evening I waited for Linda at home. Michelle was at my parents'. I'd asked them to take her for the night. When my wife came in, I was sitting at the table with her phone and printed screenshots of the correspondence. Peter, I can explain. She began. Whose child is it? I interrupted. Silence. Whose child, Linda? She started crying. But I love you. I still love you. I was lonely. You're always on the road and he was there. It just happened. Nothing just happens, I said quietly. You made a choice. Many choices. Every time you drove to Los Angeles. Every time you lied to my face. She grabbed my hand. I can fix everything. I'll have an abortion. We'll start over. I pulled my hand away. No. I don't want you to get rid of a child for my sake. That's not right. That child isn't to blame for what you did. The next few days we talked a lot. Without screaming, without scandals, just talked. Linda admitted she'd fallen in love with both of us. That she couldn't choose, so she decided to do nothing, hoping everything would somehow resolve itself. She didn't plan to get pregnant. Didn't plan for me to find out. But now you know, she said. And I understand if you hate me. I don't hate you, I replied. I'm disappointed. And hurt. But there's no hatred. Maybe it'll come eventually, but right now I'm just tired. We decided to separate. Not through courts, not through lawyers who profit from other people's misery, but like human beings. We sold the apartment, split the money equally. Linda took most of the furniture, I took part of the savings and my belongings. Custody of Michelle stayed with her. With my schedule, I physically couldn't care for a child. But we agreed. I could see my daughter whenever I wanted and Linda wouldn't interfere. A month after the divorce, she moved in with that Peter in Los Angeles. 2 months later they got married. She was 8 months pregnant. The boy was born healthy. They named him Ethan. Almost a year has passed. I still work as a truck driver, but now I rent a small apartment in Pasadena. Every 2 weeks I take Michelle for the weekend. We go to the park, eat ice cream, watch cartoons. She asks why we don't live together with Mom, and I tell her that sometimes adult people live better separately. She seems satisfied with this answer. Linda sometimes sends me photos of Ethan. I don't know why. Maybe she feels guilty. Maybe she wants to show that she made the right choice. I don't respond to these messages. That Peter, the lifeguard, wrote to me once. He apologized, said that if he'd known, everything would have been different. I believed him. He really didn't know. But that doesn't change what happened. My revenge wasn't bright or dramatic. I didn't expose them publicly, didn't ruin their reputation, didn't take all the property. My revenge was in remaining human. In not letting their betrayal turn me into an embittered and vengeful person. In preserving my relationship with my daughter and not making her choose between parents. Half the money we'd saved together, Linda took after the court proceedings. It was her share and I didn't argue. I could have fought for every cent, but why? Money comes back, time doesn't. I didn't think I'd ever tell this publicly. But here I am, sharing my story with strangers on the internet, hoping maybe someone going through something similar will find comfort in knowing they're not alone. The strangest thing about all of this is that I don't regret it. Yes, it was painful. Yes, I couldn't sleep for a long time, replaying in my head all the signs I'd missed. But Linda gave me freedom. She showed me that our marriage had been an illusion for the last 2 years. And it's better to know the truth now than to waste another 10 years on a relationship where one person is constantly looking for happiness on the side. Let me back up a bit and give you more context about how we got here. Linda and I met through mutual friends at a barbecue in Pasadena. She was funny, smart, and had this way of making everyone around her feel comfortable. We clicked immediately. Within 6 months we were living together. Within a year we were married. Everything felt right. The first few years were good. Really good. We'd take road trips on my days off, explore California, talk about our dreams. Linda wanted to eventually open her own bed and breakfast. I wanted to save enough to buy a house with a big garage where I could work on classic cars. My hobby since I was a teenager. When Michelle was born, everything shifted. Not in a bad way, just different. Linda quit working for a few months to stay home with the baby. Money got tighter. That's when I made the decision to switch to long-haul trucking. The pay was nearly double and I figured it was temporary, just until we saved enough for that house we wanted. But temporary became permanent. 1 year turned into 2, then 3. I was making good money, solidly middle class, but I was never home. I'd leave on a Sunday night and wouldn't return until the following Friday or Saturday. Sometimes longer if the route took me cross-country. Linda never complained. At least, not directly. She'd say things like, "Michelle misses you," or, "It's hard doing this alone," but she'd always follow it up with, "But I know you're working hard for us." I took that at face value. I should have dug deeper. And here's where things start to fall apart. About a year and a half ago, I noticed Linda seemed happier. She was smiling more when we video chatted. She seemed more energetic. I thought maybe she'd adjusted to our routine, found a rhythm. I was relieved. I didn't want her to be miserable. She started mentioning this Peter guy more frequently. Peter said the funniest thing today. Peter recommended this great restaurant. Peter helped me fix Michelle's bike. I was grateful she had a friend. I really was. The guilt of being gone so much was eating at me, and knowing she had someone to talk to eased that guilt. What I didn't know was that their friendship had crossed a line months before she even mentioned him to me. The messages I found later revealed that their first kiss happened at a beach bonfire in Santa Monica. Michelle was at my parents' house for the weekend. Linda had driven down to meet some friends from work. That was the first lie. The messages showed how it escalated. Quick coffee meetings turned into lunch dates. Lunch dates turned into afternoon drives along the coast. Afternoon drives turned into hotel rooms in Los Angeles. She'd tell me she was running errands or meeting her sister. More lies. And this is only half the story. The affair had been going on for almost 7 months before I discovered it. 7 months of carefully constructed alibis and deleted messages. She was good at it. Too good. The only reason I found anything was because she'd gotten comfortable, careless. She thought she was safe. When I confronted her that night with the evidence, she didn't try to deny it at first. She just cried. But as we talked over the next few days, more details emerged. She told me about how she'd felt invisible for years. How she'd beg me to take local routes even if it meant less money, but I'd always say, just one more year. How she'd lie in bed at night feeling like a single mother. I'm not excusing what I did, she said. But you need to understand, I was drowning and you weren't there to pull me up. He was. It stung because there was truth in it. I had prioritized money over presence. I'd convinced myself that providing financially was enough, that my sacrifice was noble. But Michelle didn't need a college fund as much as she needed a father at her soccer games. Linda didn't need a future house as much as she needed a present husband. Still, understanding her loneliness didn't erase her betrayal. She could have told me how bad things were. She could have demanded I find a different job. She could have left me before starting something with someone else. Instead, she chose the coward's path, keeping both of us, lying to both of us. The pregnancy revelation was what broke something fundamental in me. It wasn't just that she'd been intimate with someone else, it was that she'd been so reckless. We'd talked about maybe having another child someday, but we'd agreed to wait. Apparently, she'd decided to have one anyway, just not with me. When I asked her if she knew whose child it was when she first took the test, she admitted she'd hoped it was mine. She'd actually tried to initiate intimacy with me during one of my short visits home, hoping that if we were together, she could at least claim uncertainty. But I'd been too exhausted from driving for 18 hours straight. I'd fallen asleep on the couch before we could make it to the bedroom. So you were going to lie about that too, I said. You were going to let me raise another man's child, thinking it was mine. I don't know what I was going to do, she sobbed. I was panicking. I love you, Peter. I love him too. I don't know how to choose. You already chose, I told her. Every time you drove to Los Angeles. Every time you came home and kissed me with the same lips that kissed him. You chose. The GPS tracker I planted in her car revealed even more than I expected. Over the course of a week, she made 3 trips to Los Angeles. Each time she went to the same address, his house. She'd stay for 2 to 3 hours, then drive back. One time I followed her all the way there. I watched them through the window. They were cooking dinner together, laughing, being a couple. It was domestic and comfortable, like they'd been together for years. That's when I decided to confront him directly. I needed to know if he was just as much a victim of her lies as I was, or if he was an active participant in destroying my family. The conversation with him was enlightening. He genuinely didn't know. Linda had told him that our marriage was over in everything but paperwork. That I was cold and distant, that we'd grown apart, that the divorce was already in motion. She'd even told him that I knew about him and was fine with it, that we'd agreed to see other people while we figured things out. She said you were focusing on your career and didn't want the burden of family life anymore, he explained, looking devastated. She made it sound like you'd checked out. I thought I was helping her move on from a dead relationship. I showed him photos of our family. Michelle's birthday party from 2 months ago, where Linda and I were smiling together, cutting the cake. Our anniversary dinner from 5 months back. Screenshots of our loving text messages. His face grew paler with each image. She's pregnant, I told him. And it's yours. Did you know that? He shook his head. She told me she was on birth control. That we were being careful. Whether that was another lie or an accident, I'd never know for sure. But it didn't matter anymore. What are you going to do? He asked me again. I'm going to give her a choice, I said. She can come clean about everything, agree to a fair divorce, and we'll co-parent Michelle like adults. Or I can make this messy. I have evidence of everything, the affair, the pregnancy, the lies. I can make sure everyone knows what she did. You'd really do that? He asked. No, I admitted. But she doesn't know that. And right now, I need her to understand that there are consequences. That evening's conversation with Linda was one of the longest of my life. We talked until 3 in the morning. She confessed everything, every lie, every meeting, every moment of deception. She cried. I cried. We both mourned the death of what we'd had. I do love you, she kept saying. I never stopped loving you. But I love him too. I don't know how that's possible, but it's true. Love isn't enough, I told her. Love without respect, without honesty, without loyalty, it's nothing. It's just a word. We agreed that divorce was the only option. We agreed to do it quickly and quietly. We agreed to put Michelle first in everything. And we agreed that the baby, Ethan, would be raised knowing the truth about his parentage, but never feeling like he was a mistake or a problem. The legal process took 3 months. We used a mediator instead of lawyers to keep costs down and tensions low. We divided everything 50-50. The apartment sold quickly. Pasadena real estate market was hot. Linda got $47,000 from the sale, I got $47,000. We split the furniture, the dishes, the books. We even split Michelle's toys, half to her mom's new place, half to mine. The custody arrangement was unconventional but practical. Linda got primary physical custody because of my work schedule. But we agreed on 50-50 legal custody, meaning all major decisions about Michelle's education, health, and welfare would be made jointly. And I got Michelle every other weekend, plus 2 full weeks in the summer and alternating holidays. I made sure the agreement specified that Linda's new husband couldn't legally adopt Michelle without my consent, which I'd never give. I also made sure it specified that I could maintain my relationship with Michelle regardless of where Linda lived or who she married. My lawyer, yes, I eventually consulted one to review the agreement, said it was one of the most amicable divorces he'd ever seen, considering the circumstances. Linda moved in with Peter, the other Peter, a month after the divorce was finalized. She was 7 months pregnant by then. They married in a small courthouse ceremony. No big wedding, no celebration. Just paperwork making their relationship legal before the baby came. Ethan was born 6 weeks later. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Healthy lungs. I could hear him crying in the background when Linda called to tell me. She sent photos. He had his father's dark hair and Linda's nose. He looked nothing like Michelle, nothing like me. That made it easier somehow. Michelle adjusted better than I expected. At 6 years old, she didn't fully understand why mommy and daddy didn't live together anymore, but she accepted it. Linda and I made sure never to badmouth each other in front of her. We stayed civil at pickups and drop-offs. We attended her school events separately but politely. The first time Michelle met her baby brother, I wasn't there. Linda had asked if I wanted to be, but I declined. That felt like a bridge too far. But Michelle came home that weekend full of stories about baby Ethan, and how tiny his fingers were. She seemed happy to be a big sister, even if the circumstances were weird. Over time, a new normal emerged. I stayed in Pasadena, renting a modest 1-bedroom apartment and converting the living room into Michelle's space when she visited. I bought a pull-out couch that became her bed, decorated one wall with her artwork, kept her favorite snacks in the pantry. I continued long-haul trucking for a few more months, but my heart wasn't in it anymore. The road felt lonelier than ever. So I applied for a position with a regional company that kept me within California and brought me home every night. The pay cut was significant, about 30% less, but I could finally be present. I could pick Michelle up from school on my days. I could attend her dance recitals. I could be the father I should have been all along. Linda noticed the change. "You seem different," she said one day during a pickup. "More at peace." "I am," I told her. Turns out I needed this wake-up call. I was so focused on providing that I forgot what I was providing for. She looked sad. "I'm sorry. For all of it. I wish I'd just talked to you instead of." "Yeah," I said. "Me too." There was nothing more to say. We'd both made mistakes. Hers were bigger, more destructive. But mine laid the groundwork for hers. I'd created the emptiness she tried to fill elsewhere. The other Peter, Michelle's Peter as I sometimes thought of him, reached out periodically. He'd send messages checking on how I was doing, apologizing again, offering to meet for coffee. I ignored most of them. But eventually, about 8 months after the divorce, I agreed to meet him. We sat in a Starbucks in neutral territory, somewhere between Pasadena and Los Angeles. It was awkward at first. What do you say to the man who's now raising your daughter's half-brother? The man who's sleeping in a bed next to your ex-wife? But we talked. Really talked. He told me about his own father who'd left when he was young. How he'd sworn never to do that to a kid. How finding out he was going to be a father was terrifying and exciting in equal measure. "I want you to know," he said, "I'll never try to replace you with Michelle. Linda's made it clear that you're her dad, period. And I respect that." "Appreciate it," I said. "And if you ever want to know anything about Ethan or if Michelle talks about him and you have questions, you can ask. I know this is weird for everyone." It was weird. But it was also life. Messy, complicated, imperfect life. The revenge I'd fantasized about in those early days, exposing Linda publicly, turning our families against her, fighting for full custody out of spite, all of it seemed pointless now. What would it accomplish? Michelle would suffer. Ethan would suffer. Even Linda, for all her faults, didn't deserve to be destroyed. So my revenge became something different. It became living well. It became being the best father I could be. It became showing Michelle that even when people disappoint you, even when your world falls apart, you can choose to respond with grace. I started therapy about 6 months after the divorce. My therapist helped me work through the anger and betrayal. She helped me see my own role in the marriage's failure without excusing Linda's choices. She helped me understand that I could forgive Linda without condoning what she did. Forgiveness, she explained, wasn't about letting Linda off the hook. It was about freeing myself from the weight of bitterness. Did I fully forgive her? I'm still working on it. Some days are better than others. Some days I see her with her new family and feel nothing but relief that I'm not part of that anymore. Other days I see her with her new family and feel a stab of loss for what could have been. Michelle asked me last month if I'd ever get married again. We were driving back from the park and the question came out of nowhere. Maybe someday, I told her. If I meet the right person. What's the right person like? She asked. Someone honest, I said. Someone who talks to me when things are hard instead of running away. Someone who wants to build a life together, not just exist next to each other. That sounds good, she said, then went back to playing her game. Out of the mouths of babes. I'm not actively looking for someone new. The idea of trusting someone enough to be vulnerable again feels impossible right now. But I'm not closed off to the possibility either. Maybe in a year or 2 or 5 I'll be ready. For now, I focus on work, on Michelle, on rebuilding my life. I've reconnected with old friends I'd neglected during the marriage. I've picked up woodworking as a hobby. I'm learning to cook more than just scrambled eggs and sandwiches. I'm becoming a fuller version of myself. Linda seems happy with her new life. I see it in the photos she posts on social media. Yes, I occasionally check, I'm only human. She and Peter look genuinely content. Ethan is growing fast, already starting to crawl. Michelle talks about family dinners at their house, about going to the beach, about her little brother's first laugh. Part of me, a small, petty part, wants her to be miserable. Wants her relationship with Peter to fail, wants her to regret everything. But most of me just wants her to be happy. Not for her sake, but for Michelle's and Ethan's. Kids deserve stable, happy homes. They deserve parents who are present and engaged. The financial split ended up being straightforward. We'd had about $94,000 in savings and equity from the apartment sale. She got half, I got half. No alimony on either side since we both worked. Child support was calculated based on our incomes and custody arrangement. I pay $600 a month, which is fair given she has Michelle most of the time and my salary is slightly higher. Some of my friends thought I was crazy for not fighting harder financially. She cheated on you, man. You should take her to the cleaners, they said. But what good would that do? Make her life harder? Make Michelle's life harder? Make Ethan's life harder? No thanks. I'd rather keep my integrity. The toughest moments come unexpectedly. Like when Michelle mentioned that Daddy Peter taught her to swim, and I realized I'd never taken the time to do that. Or when she casually mentioned that Ethan looks like her, and I had to smile and nod even though he's not my blood. Or when I run into people who don't know we're divorced yet and I have to explain it. But there are good moments too. Like when Michelle tells me I'm her favorite daddy, she says it jokingly now that there are 2 Peters in her life, but I know she means it. Or when I successfully make her favorite dinner from scratch. Or when we're watching a movie together and she falls asleep with her head on my shoulder, trusting and safe. Those moments make everything worthwhile. I've learned a lot about myself through this process. I've learned that I'm stronger than I thought. That I can survive heartbreak and come out the other side. That I can co-parent with someone who hurt me deeply and still be civil. That I can forgive without forgetting. I've also learned my limits. I've learned that I need to be more vocal about my needs in relationships. That I need to prioritize presence over paychecks. That I need to pay attention to warning signs instead of dismissing them. If I could go back and change things, would I? That's complicated. I'd change how much I worked, absolutely. I'd be more present, more attentive. But would I change meeting Linda? Marrying her? Having Michelle with her? No. Because Michelle exists because of those choices. And she's the best thing that ever happened to me. Even if the marriage failed, even if Linda betrayed me, I got my daughter out of it. And that makes all the pain worthwhile. The story doesn't have a neat, tidy ending. Life rarely does. Linda's living her life with her new family. I'm living mine. Michelle splits her time between us. We're all moving forward in our own ways. Is it the ending I wanted 8 years ago when I said, I do? Of course not. But it's the ending I've made peace with. And sometimes that's enough. The other day I was driving Michelle to school, one of my mornings with her, and she asked me if I was happy. Yes, sweetheart, I said. I am. Are you? Aha, she nodded. I have 2 houses now. And 2 daddies. That's kind of cool. Kids are resilient. They adapt. They find silver linings where adults only see clouds. Maybe that's the real lesson in all of this. Not that betrayal doesn't hurt, or that cheating is forgivable, or that broken marriages can be fixed. But that life goes on. That people are complicated. That you can be both a victim and a contributor to your own misfortune. That revenge doesn't have to be destruction. It can be reconstruction. I'm rebuilding. One day at a time. One weekend with Michelle at a time. One therapy session at a time. One moment of choosing grace over bitterness at a time. And you know what? I'm going to be okay. Better than okay. I'm going to be happy. Not in spite of what happened, but because of what I chose to do with it. That's my revenge. That's my victory. That's my story. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. The screen now displays a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.